It's April 1562. The whole of France is up in arms. After the massacre at Vassy and the seizure of the king and his court by the Guise, war seems inevitable. Conde occupies Orléans, as countless towns and cities also fall to the Protestants. In Rouen, Le Havre, Tours and Lyon, Protestant 5th columnists overpower the Catholics. Conde is elected supreme commander and protector of the Huguenot cause. Using his strong position in the Loire Valley, he hopes to isolate the Protestant heartland in the southwest from staunchly Catholic Paris and the northeast. Paris is also cut off from the sea, as the Protestants in Rouen control the Seine. However, in Guyenne and Burgundy, the Catholics manage to retain control. This way, the Protestant enclaves themselves are separated from one another. This is the difficult strategic situation in France in the spring of 1562. Mobilization soon begins in earnest. As this is a civil war, both armies draw from the pre-existing units and resources of the realm. The French military at this time is second to none, being the result of 60 years of almost continuous warfare. A series of victories and defeats honed its skills to the maximum. As most armies of Western Europe, the French military is also based on combined arms formations, a close cooperation of pike and shot, cavalry and artillery. Its main striking force is represented by the gendarmes. The gendarmes are armoured head to toe in state-of-the-art plate armour. The horses of those fighting in the front ranks are also encased in armour. Most of the gendarmes are members of the nobility, trained from childhood to ride horses and charge with a lance. They are the oldest and proudest class of the professional military, being founded during the darkest days of the 100 Years' War. In peacetime, there are around 7,000 gendarmes, formed into lances comprising of 2 to 3 men-at-arms, who are supported by an equal number of mounted archers or arquebusiers. They are complemented, and in some cases supplanted, by the newest branch of the cavalry, the Reiters. The Reiters are mostly from Germany, and are the result of the recent advances in technology. With the advent of the wheel lock and the snap lock, firearms have gotten more compact, allowing their use from horseback. Instead of a lance, the Reiters charge in with a pair of pistols and fire them from close range, making these compact weapons as effective as a full-size musket. Unlike the gendarmes, the Reiters wear cheaper, mass-produced 3/4 armour, allowing them more tactical flexibility, but also a reasonable staying power. Cavalry makes up a fifth to a third of contemporary French armies. Even though cavalry is the main striking force, ever since the pike and shot revolution of the early 16th century, infantry has become the backbone of the army. The infantry is made up of 3 contingents. The most prominent of these are the Swiss. The Swiss have been incorporated into French armies even before the Italian Wars, and have traditionally formed the core of the infantry. They are lightly armoured and fight in a tight formation with a 6-meter long pike and a longsword. They are equally good in defense and offense, and are renowned for their resilience and bravery. The Swiss are somewhat handicapped by a reluctance to adopt firearms, these soldiers only making up a tenth of their formations. The Swiss are complemented by Landsknechts, German soldiers who are originally modelled on the Swiss. The Landsknechts are known for their colourful dress and flexibility on the battlefield. Like the Swiss, they fight in a tight formation with a long pike and a sword. However, unlike the Swiss, they have a sizable contingent of musketeers and arquebusiers within their ranks. Landsknechts are inferior in courage and unit cohesion when compared to the Swiss. However, they are able to mitigate this by a clever combination of pikes and firearms. Additionally to these foreign troops, there's also a contingent of French infantry. The first of these formations was established by Francis I in the 1530s, who modelled them on the Landsknechts. Similarly to the Landsknechts, they fight in tight formations with an even higher ratio of muskets to pikes. As far as discipline and effectiveness are concerned, these can vary to a large degree. Veteran regiments can be as good as the Landsknechts, while newly established ones a little better than city militias. Additionally to these 2 arms, there is also the world-class French artillery. The French have been among the first to establish a professional corps of artillery. Their guns are manned by full-time soldiers, and have proven decisive not only in sieges, but also in fully fledged battles like at Ravenna. Thus, the quality and availability of soldiers is no issue for either side. The logistics of gathering up and paying the armies, however, proves to be far more challenging. Most active duty forces are concentrated on the border regions of France, protecting the country from the Habsburg lands that surround it. Mustering all these soldiers to where they're needed will take months. Getting the indispensable Swiss and German contingents will take even longer. Moving the artillery proves to be the most daunting task, as thousands of teamsters and pioneers need to be hired to shift the guns, powder and shot. And all of this has to be done on a shoestring budget, the kingdom being bankrupt since the death of King Henry. To mitigate their poverty, the Royalists appeal to the bankers and merchants of Paris, as well as foreign aid from Spain and the Pope. The Protestants themselves first seize all regular incomes from the regions they control, and supplement this with the confiscation of church property, as well as generous donations from an extensive network of Calvinist congregations. French units are split down the middle. Most Protestants join the Protestant cause, while those who are Catholic, as well as a small number of Calvinists who hold the law supreme, join the Royalist side. Recruitment of foreign regiments is less direct, being handled by local agents of the French crown. As most of these mercenary captains remain loyal to the king, their side has the advantage in the long run. The Protestants are more efficient in the short term, quickly amassing decisive numbers at Orléans. However, due to Conde's indecision, they squander this initial advantage, holding back for months in their defensive positions. While the logistics are being sorted out, both sides engage in a savage war of vitriolic propaganda. The Protestants insist that far from being rebels, they are the true representatives of the king, only meant to rescue him from foreign usurpers, namely the Guise. Far from being intransigent, they claim to be on the right side of the religious debate, advocating for full toleration of the new faith. The Catholics, on the other hand, claim to be certain that the Protestant rebellion is solely motivated by a malicious desire of Conde and Coligny to become kings themselves. Moreover, they state that Calvinism as an ideology is inherently rebellious and anti-monarchical, as the conspiracy of Amboise clearly shows. A large portion of this propaganda is directed at the German princes, who control the recruitment of Landsknechts and Reiters, indispensable for both sides. In spite of the Catholics' efforts to dissuade the mostly Lutheran princes from helping the Calvinist French, both sides managed to recruit soldiers from Germany. As the propaganda and the preparation for war continue, Catherine and her centrist party make a last effort to obtain a negotiated peace, but to no avail. Saber rattling and the gears of war in motion drown out their voice. By June, the Royalist side is ready for war. Large numbers of Swiss and Germans have gathered around Paris. The French cavalry and infantry have mustered, and the artillery is ready to go. Anne de Montmorency is put in overall command, with the Duke of Guise and Saint-André as his lieutenants. In July 1562, the Catholic army moves into the Loire Valley. They outnumber the Protestants almost 2-1, so the initial engagements easily go their way. By September, the cities of Tours and Bourges are taken. The war had barely started, and the Protestants are already on the back foot. But just as the Royalists are preparing to march on Orléans, two things happen. Elizabeth I, Queen of England, has finally made up her mind to answer the Protestants' cry for help, be it partly motivated by selfish interests. In October, an English contingent numbering 6,000 lands at Huguenot-controlled Le Havre. The French Protestants hand over the keys to the city that the English intend to hold as a pawn until Calais is restored to England. Perceiving this as a more urgent issue, the Royalist War Council decides to lead a sizable blocking force around Orléans and head into Normandy with the main force, to oust the English and to reduce Rouen. With no help coming from the English, Rouen is eventually captured by October and afterwards savagely sacked. Antoine de Bourbon, the King of Navarre, is mortally wounded during the siege, the first of the commanders to exit the stage. While this is going on, the Protestants again receive an uplift. François de Andelot, Gaspard de Coligny's brother, returns to France with a large force of Reiters and Landsknechts that he recruited in Germany. The Catholics again have to split their forces, as Saint-André races with a blocking force to meet them. But in spite of Saint-André's efforts, de Andelot manages to evade him, joining up with his comrades in Orléans. But even so, the Protestants are still outnumbered. The Royalists conclude that as the year is almost done, there will be no more significant action until next spring. To this end, they sent part of their army home, leaving a sizable force to block the Protestants in Orléans, while the Duke of Guise remains in the north with another detachment to besiege the English. This way, the Catholics hope that the Protestants will run out of money, and their foreign mercenaries will desert them. But in December, Conde surprises everyone. He gathers his forces and in an all-or-nothing move, marches on Paris. With the capital thus threatened, Guise abandons the siege of Le Havre and races back to the capital. Formerly demobilized soldiers are now called back, and citizen militias begin to fortify the city. In this desperate situation, Conde is plausibly close to taking the city. But instead of doing this, he chooses to set up camp several miles from Paris and wait. Seeing this indecision, Catherine of Medici sallies forth to negotiate. But this, of course, is merely a trick. 2 weeks of fruitless talks give Guise and Montmorency time to concentrate a decisive force in Paris. Soon, Conde becomes the hunted. Faced by a superior royalist force, he is now compelled to break camp and retreat. Now, the only logical thing is to move into Normandy to unite with the English. To this end, the Protestant army begins to move north, but on the 19th of December 1562, their way is blocked by a large royalist army just south of the town of Dreux. The Catholics have around 19,000 soldiers against the Protestants' 13,000. They are stronger in infantry, but weaker in terms of cavalry. To allay this inferiority in horse, the Catholics position themselves in a long line between the villages of Blainville and Epinay, being flanked by woods and streams on both sides. The royalist left is led by the commander himself and the Montmorency. Montmorency positions his cavalry on the extreme left, and his French infantry and Swiss pikemen towards the centre. The right flank of the army is commanded by Saint-André. He splits his cavalry between the flank and the centre, with French infantry and Landsknechts holding the line. The Duke of Guise remains hidden behind the right flank with the Spanish infantry and a group of gendarmes. The Huguenot army is commanded by Conde on the left and Coligny on the right. They both position the gendarmes and the Reiters, their main striking force, in the front. Landsknechts and French infantry make up the second line, with additional cavalry further back in reserve. Initially, none of the armies seem ready to fight. Men on both sides have friends and relatives in the opposing force. After facing down each other for 2 hours, the Catholics make the first move. In fear of losing the initiative, the Protestants also attack. In the first move, Coligny's horsemen fall on the Catholic right. They make quick work of the inferior royalist cavalry, then turn around to attack the infantry. The French infantry quickly breaks, however the Swiss stand firm. After this, Coligny's cavalry turns to pursue the fleeing Catholic horse. Reaching their enemy's camp, they fall upon it and begin to loot the baggage. Coligny attempts to rally them, but without much success. During the attack, Montmorency, the Catholic army's commander, is captured and immediately spirited away. Meanwhile, Conde himself moves to exploit this local victory. He sends his infantry and a group of Reiters to block the royalist right, then turns to assault the already weakened Swiss with his cavalry. But the Swiss are far from finished. Cavalry charge after cavalry charge is repulsed as they continue to stand firm. After these attacks, their arch-enemies, the Landsknechts, move in from the right. The Swiss fall upon them with all their fury, forcing the Landsknechts to withdraw towards Blainville. Conde now gathers all his cavalry and throws them against the Swiss in a desperate last charge. But all this manages to do is push the Swiss slightly back towards the centre. At this crucial moment, Saint-André and Guise go on the attack. Their Landsknechts and veteran French infantry sweep away the Huguenots' inexperienced French infantry. When the Duke of Guise attacks with his fresh gendarmes and Spanish infantry, the Landsknechts either yield or die on the spot. The Reiters are also forced to flee. Conde attempts a desperate charge, but his men are cut down and he is taken prisoner. In the last act, Coligny, who finally managed to rally his gendarmes, makes a failed attempt to rescue the situation. He charges the Catholic lines, but to no avail. The masses of Catholic infantry repulses every attack, the only result being the capture and slaying of Marshal Saint-André. As night falls, Coligny and his remaining men are forced to retreat. By the end of the battle, at least 9,000 men are dead. The Protestants have barely any infantry left, but their cavalry is still more or less intact. This prevents the Catholic army, who have very little cavalry left, from mounting an effective pursuit. Nonetheless, the Duke of Guise, the only Catholic commander left, does all in his power to follow up on the victory. By the beginning of February 1563, the main army is besieging Orléans. D'Andelot is left to defend the beleaguered city with a handful of infantry and citizen militias. Meanwhile, Coligny mounts a chevauchée into Normandy in the vain hope of obtaining help from the English or distracting the main Catholic force. By mid-February, the situation in Orléans is hopeless. The Catholics are preparing for a final assault that will undoubtedly carry them to victory. This is when an alleged Huguenot deserter sneaks up on the Duke of Guise, fires his pistol, and mortally wounds the last Catholic commander. With Guise's death, the siege stalls, and Orléans is given a reprieve. Now that almost all the major figures are out of the game, Catherine of Medici sees a chance for peace. Ignoring that the Protestants were on the brink of defeat, Catherine strives to obtain a negotiated peace. By this, she hopes to obtain a balance of power, where her party of moderates would become the kingmaker. After Conde and Montmorency are released, peace is achieved by the Edict of Amboise. The Edict of Amboise permits free worship to the nobility, all the while restricting it for commoners, who are only allowed to worship in those places that already have Huguenot congregations, and even there only in a few designated places. Church property is to be restored, and the German mercenaries are to be paid from the royal coffers. Given the outcome of the war, this settlement seems fair, but predictably none of the parties are happy with it. Resistance to the edict is initially high, with Paris and Lyon being the most reluctant. But eventually they likewise yield, as France settles into an uneasy peace.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, it helps with the algorithm. Check out my Patreon if you want to help me on this journey. Links down below.